New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. Hello again, dear ones. Reverend Robert with you here on a Saturday morning. It's 9 o'clock on the Mountain Time Zone, and that means it is time for our Saturday morning Science of Mind and Spirit conversations. Yeah, we've been trying to get that into a shorter name for a couple of years now, I think. But it says exactly what we're doing here. So if you're wondering what you've just stumbled into, if this is your first time with us, we are here to study the Science of Mind textbook, and we do that chapter by chapter with a revolving cast of people. And so it is designed to be a conversation. We do want to hear from you throughout the conversation, throughout the morning. We would love to hear from you, where you are in the world, who you are in the world, if you want. And as we get digging into our information here, into our content, we'll be sure feel free to ask questions as we go as well. Good morning, Wayne, all the way from Calgary. Good to see you, dear one. Shay, here in the mountains of Colorado. Grateful that you are with us as well. Fiona, all the way from the far side of the planet in Geneva, Switzerland. Thank you for being with us. Grateful that you are here as well. It's morning here and evening there. I love how that works. I love the way the planet works. I love the way it all works. And that's part of what we're going to focus on in today. Our conversation today is around chapter 16 in the Science of Mind, the principles of successful living. And one of the things you're going to hear in this today is that gratitude is a part of successful living. So we want to send a big shout out to Reverends Victoria Bomberry, Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadley, and last week, Reverend Elzia Sekou, for their deep exploration, three-part exploration into physical perfection. And so if you got to watch any of those, you know exactly what it is we're talking about. And if you didn't, well, they're available on our YouTube channel over on the archives. Please do go check those out as well. Good morning, Isaac. Good to see you as well. Thank you for being with us. Grateful you're here. All right. So in this book, right, it's unique. It's not, it isn't the type of book you just open up to a chapter and start reading. It builds, and each part of this has been building to a point now where in the past few weeks we've discussed physical perfection, and we've come to understand a greater perspective of physical perfection. And now Dr. Holmes is leading us into the principles of successful living. Now, I can't imagine anyone that doesn't want to know more about how to live a successful life. We're not going to define what success is, but we're going to look at the principles of successful living. And this chapter is broken into 6 parts, not something for nothing. The law is infinite, demonstrating the law, spirit and mental law, success and happiness. And so we're going to dive into each of those a little bit here today. And I want you to know, when I look at my textbook, and there is a lot here that is highlighted, underlined, got a lot of stars in this chapter. This is a big chapter because there's a lot going on at this point. We have learned so much about how to use this philosophy. It is a philosophy of faith, and now we're moving into that place where Holmes is reminding us how to make it a way of life as all. So the chapter opens, lessons on prosperity and mental control of conditions are sometimes dangerous because of the misunderstanding of the subject. Science of mind is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Neither does it promise something for nothing. It does, however, promise the one who will comply with its teachings shall be able to bring greater possibilities and happier conditions into their experience. So all Holmes is saying is, yeah, this is not something for nothing. We're not going to just sit back on our thumbs and wait for the universe to drop a gold brick in our hands. That's not how any of it happens. It does, however, promise the one who will comply with its teachings shall be able to bring greater possibilities and happier conditions into our experience. So that's what we're about, creating happier conditions and greater possibilities as to what it is that we're bringing forward into our lives and how we get to live these lives. If we continue over on to page 267, near the bottom of the second paragraph there, no person whose entire time is spent in the contemplation of limitations can demonstrate freedom from such limitations. This is why some get confused and think that the science of mind is all, oh, it's all good, it's all good, it's all good, when really what we're doing is turning away from the old limiting conditions. No person whose entire time is spent in the contemplation of limitation can demonstrate freedom from such limitations. That's why we don't tell the story over and over again. When people ask, how are you doing? I don't tell them the story of what's going wrong in my life or what isn't working. Now, I'm not calling anybody out, but we all know someone like that, right? Every conversation is in some way focused mostly, predominantly on what isn't working or where they didn't get what they want. Now, this isn't to say that we don't experience those moments of loss when they happen. You get turned down for a job. You go through the grief of that. You go through the process of that. You go through the learning of that. But the predominant thought pattern has to be, this is working for me. Not that I'm a loser and can't hold a job, or there isn't enough, or I was let go for unjust reasons, or all that stuff. The person whose entire time is spent in the contemplation of limitation can demonstrate free up. You get what I'm saying. You get what Holmes is saying, I trust. And in the very next paragraph, at the beginning of the second section, the law is infinite. So, remember, none of this is we're not getting something for nothing. This is not get rich quick. It's going to take our effort and our consciousness and our willingness to change and be something in order for it to happen. So the law is infinite. The science of mind is based entirely around the supposition that we are surrounded by a universal mind into which we think. This mind, in its original state, fills all space. So there is this oneness that we are a part of. And there's no getting around it, no getting away from it, no going beyond it. This one thing, this universal mind, in its original state, fills all space. It fills the space that we use in the universe. It is in each one of us as well as outside of us. As we think into this universal mind, we set in a law in motion, which is creative and which contains within itself a limitless possibility. There's that unlimited possibility again. Limitless, unlimited. There is no limit to the law, but there appears to be. So Holmes, in this paragraph, he's reminding us of the law through which one operates is infinite, but one appears to be finite. Near the bottom of that paragraph, there is no limit to the law, but there appears to be a limit to one's understanding of it. I raise my hand right here, folks. I in the early part, before I was introduced to the science of mind, I often reflect back that I understood much of what I've learned in the science of mind. I just didn't know how to exactly use it, or that we even could use it. I recognize the vague principles of it. And then as we step into this philosophy, and no matter how far down the journey you may be within this philosophy, I'm continually coming to a greater and greater understanding of how this creative law really works. And more importantly, how to work it. Great Johnny Coleman's famous phrase, it works if you work it. It works if you work it. It's not going to work. Nothing. It's not something for nothing. It works when we work it. There is no limit to the law, but there appears to be a limit to one's understanding of it. As our understanding unfolds, the possibility of attainment will increase. That's why we cannot say, I am abundant and rich and financially prosperous and free, and all those things just kind of happen. We have to come to this understanding, to this sense of unfolding ourselves into greater and greater and greater understanding and experience, and they lead together. As I come to experience the use of this law, the unfailing nature of this law, then I can better understand and rely upon that. Yes, Dr. Tracy Brown, who will be with us next week. Limitless possibility. If we could just remember, there is always more growth, more success, more joy, more power, more of whatever we want. Exactly. See, on page 267, Holmes continues at the very bottom. It is a great mistake to say, take what you wish, for you can have anything you like. We do not take what we wish, but we do attract to ourselves that which is like our thoughts. One must become more if one wishes to draw a greater good into our lives. So thank you for the word more, Dr. Tracy. I love it, because I have an acronym I use for more, and that is the movement of reality evolving. Got that? Big idea. The movement of reality evolving. As my life, as your life, as everyone that has that place that says, yes, I'm willing to be a part of this thing. Yes, I'm willing to participate in this co-creative evolution of consciousness and experience. On page 268 as well, in the second paragraph, here's where the whole next 3 pages, every sentence has something that's important. So let's see what we could make of all this. The law is a law of liberty, but not a law of license. It is exact and exacting, and unless we are willing to comply with its nature, meaning the law, with its nature and work with it along the lines of its inherent being, we shall receive no great benefit. We have to be willing to work with the divine nature, not push against it. And we're going to get into that in a little bit more here in just a minute. Everyone must pay the price for that which we receive, and that price is paid in mental and spiritual coin. Now, this is a phrase that has spent many hours in conversation in all kinds of classes, because it always comes up. What is this mental and spiritual coin? Now, I don't know that I've ever actually heard this phrase in any else's writing that wasn't like a direct inspiration from Holmes and from this. If it's out there, let me know. Put it in the chat box. If this phrase has a history I'm not aware of before Holmes, I'd love to know about it. Everyone must pay the price. That price is paid in mental and spiritual coin. It means we have to invest. We have to invest in our mental and our spiritual capacities. We have to invest our mind into remembering and affirming that which we desire. We have to invest our spiritual experience into our alignment, coming into that alignment with the divine law, this creative principle, which is exacting and exact. All nature conspires to produce and manifest the freedom of the individual, that it may unloose its own energy. We may be sure God is for us. And I'm going to skip that. He's basically saying whatever our consumption, however you see God, however, even if you don't like that word, even if you want to use a different word, however you see this divine principle, the thing must act in accordance with definite law in the universe. All nature conspires to produce and manifest the freedom of the individual. We may be sure God is for us and our own salvation. This thing must act in accordance with definite law in the universe. And here's where it gets really important. This law says that whenever and wherever there is an adequate subjective image, whenever and wherever you have an adequate subjective image, an idea in your mind, a thought, a vision, that image, wherever there is an adequate subjective image which does not contradict the nature of the universe, wherever we hold a vision, a thought that does not contradict the nature of the universe, which is in alignment with the nature of the universe, the image will not only tend to take form, but will take form and will manifest. But it has to be aligned with the nature of the universe. When I dig into this, I realize this is part of why genocide is never actually completed on our planet. Because the nature of the universe is not to kill out an entire group of people. The nature of the universe is to create, is to move into the direction of more, into the motion of reality evolving. The nature is to move into an evolving experience of what we like. And what we know is the universe is for good. Now, Holmes continues in here and moves into our reminder of prayer. True prayer must be, thy will be done. But the implication relative to the will of God in this prayer is not a submission to the inevitability of evil or limitation. It is a knowledge that the will of God is always good. So thy will be done is not an excuse for people doing bad things. Thy will be done, it's all good, is not an excuse for people that use this law in an attempt to hurt others, to oppress others, to discount others. It is a knowledge that the will of God is always good, is always uplifting people. The nature of the divine, the will of the universe, the will of God is that we may each be lifted up to a greater understanding of these truths, so we may use these truths to enact an evolution within ourselves that allows us to grow and become more. The bottom of the page. If we assume God to be the principle of life, the principle of life cannot produce death without destroying itself. The will of life has only to be life. The will of God has to be good. The will of life has to be life. Everything should tend to expansion and multiplication in the divine plan. That is the will of God. We should interpret the will of God to be everything that expresses life without hurt. Anything that will enable us to express greater life, greater happiness, greater power, so long as it does not harm anyone, must be the will of God for us. As much life as one can conceive will become a part of their experience. Right, folks, I don't like coffee. Never have. I drink my tea. Tea drinkers know. Coffee drinkers, you know coffee. That's cool. Anything that will enable us to express greater life, greater happiness, greater power, so long as it does not harm anybody, must be the will of God. That doesn't mean that, so God doesn't give more to the coffee drinkers. It's not better to be a coffee drinker or a tea drinker. Tea drinkers, it's not better to be a tea drinker than a coffee drinker. That which works for me, but does not harm others, does not cast a vibration of harm or ill will out into the universe, that does not cast a vibration of othering out into the universe. Continues, still on page 268, we're on paragraph 2 now. The mental avenue must be provided through which the law may operate as a law of liberty if we are to be free. Success has always been about becoming free of constraints, of limitations. No matter how we may look at this sense of success, however we may define success, it is always been about moving into this place, this law of liberty where we are free. This does not mean we must please the law, for it is impersonal and neither knows nor cares who uses it, nor for what purpose it is being used. This is why people can misuse the law, because it's impersonal. You can use this law to injure people, to other people, to marginalize people, to oppress people, but it's not lasting. It's not lasting, and it will come back to bite us. We will experience the repercussions, if you will, of our misuse of the law. And we all have that ability to misuse the law as well. This does not mean we must please the law, for the law is impersonable, and neither knows nor cares who uses it, nor for what purposes, because it is impersonal. It is compelled by its very nature to return to the thinker exactly what they think into it. This is why often the law is referred to as being plastic. Whatever we put into the law must return to each of us in an exacting way. The law of mental equivalence must never be overlooked. For whatever one soweth, that shall also we reap. If one is intelligent, they will naturally seek to free themselves from misery and unhappiness. A little bit farther down on that paragraph, every act in the life of the individual is that such an individual may express themselves. Every one of us is a unique expression of the divine. I have come to realize that there's no question in that. Every one of us is an absolute perfect expression of the divine. No matter what we do, no matter what we say. Now, again, we can use that sense of perfection in an ego-based way, in a harmful way, misusing the law, but it doesn't change the fact that we are each working to express ourselves. The question becomes, are we trying to express ourselves from a sense of harm, from a sense of hurt, from a sense of limitation, from the limiting side of life, or are we expressing ourselves as the creative side of life, as that part that says, hey, I don't always know exactly what it is, but I know that I know that it's out here. For instance, no, never mind. There it is again, at the bottom of 269. That's what I'm looking for. We realize that to attempt this self-expression at the expense of society or other individuals is to defeat the very purpose for which freedom exists. Throughout this chapter, Holmes reminds us again and again and again, we have to be working towards the good. Now, it's not selfish to get what we need, but it is selfish to get what we need at the cost of someone else. The criteria for anyone as to what is right or wrong for them is not to be found in someone else's judgment. The criteria is, does the thing I wish to do express more life, more happiness, more peace to myself, and at the same time harm no one? Do no harm. First, do no harm. We know that phrase. Does the thing I wish to do express more life, more happiness, more peace to myself, and at the same time harm no one? If it does, it is right. It's not selfish. But if it is done at the expense of anyone, then in such degree, we're making a wrong use of the law. See, once you know this, folks, you see it everywhere. I call it metaphysical malpractice, where someone is using the law in such a way, maybe not to purposefully harm someone, but definitely at their expense. One does not exist. This is just a little bit lower. One does not exist for the purpose of making an impression upon their environment. We exist to express ourselves in and through our environment. And you've heard me, if you've been around this network at all in the last 3 years, you've heard me say this again and again and again and again. Whether it's music, whether it's entertainment, whether it's conversation, whether it's Sunday morning services, no matter what it is, we are creating an environment around us of positivity, of inspiration, of growth, of evolution. It is not necessary that we leave any impression. It is not necessary, if we should pass on tonight, that anyone should remember that we have ever lived. All that means anything is that while we live, we live. And wherever we go from here, we shall keep on living. See, when we come to life with our complaints, when we come to life with that consistent what's not working, when we come to life with that sense of this is not enough, we're not really living. We're not really living. The principles of successful living are simple. Do no harm. Recognize that we have to participate in this co-creative experience that is our lives, that is the life of the divine. And we have to do that in alignment with the universal law. These are easy principles, but we have to be willing to demonstrate them. And that's where Holmes takes us next on page 271, demonstrating the law. The possibilities of the law are infinite, and our possibilities of using it are limitless. There is such a thing as universal law in mind, and we can use it if we comply with its nature and work as it works. We say it again, it works if you work it. When I'm in alignment with the universal law and mind, I have the opportunity to use that. Yes, to change the conditions of my life. Yes, to change the experiences of my life. And they all still have to be in an alignment with the divine nature, with the universal law of good, of growth, of evolution. Now, down a little bit farther, there is the ultimate question. How do I do this? The way to work it is to begin right where you are. And through constantly applying ourselves to the truth, we gradually increase in wisdom and understanding. For in this way alone will good results be obtained. Every time I read this part, I reflect back to an experience in my earlier years of learning this philosophy. And in the self-mastery course, which I don't know if it's even called that anymore. This is almost 20 years ago now. In that course, between my beloved Laura and I came to a realization that I was hiding behind a longtime family nickname. Now, that doesn't make the nickname bad. I'm not going to tell you what it was. It doesn't make the nickname limiting. It's just the day came where I realized I needed to be in a greater alignment with the truth of who I am. And so I let go of the nickname and took back my given name. In today's world, that's a little different. And more people are realizing or come to realize that the truth of who they are may not be what was assigned to them at birth, whether that be gender or name. And so the younger, I see what's happening in the world as a demonstration of this philosophy, because the younger generations are coming into a greater sense of their own truth rather than what they were told. The way to work it is to begin right where we are, and through constantly applying ourselves to the truth, we gradually increase in wisdom and understanding, for in this way alone will good results be obtained. See, the truth Holmes refers to is the absolute truth, the divine truth, the truth of all life, that we are all part of this one thing called life, the absolute. If day by day we have a greater understanding and a clearer concept, if daily we are realizing more of truth and applying it in our actions, then we are on the right path, and eventually we shall be made free. It is a wonderful experiment and a great adventure to make conscious use of the law, to feel that we can plant an idea in mind and see it gradually take form. Again, not a get-rich-quick scheme. Not a get rich quick. Here it is. It's all just given to you. And I sit in meditation for 20 minutes and a gold brick drops in my hand. No, work it, work it, work it. And the more I work it, the more it takes human time. But the more I work it, the more I come into alignment with the truth, and the more I demonstrate that. You know, when I let go of that nickname, not everybody let go of it with me. There is actually still a person in my life that calls every 6 or 8 months and calls me by that nickname. And the truth is, I never seem to catch those calls when they come in. I always hear them on the voicemail. And I never quite seem to have the time to reply to those voicemails, because that person is addressing the untruth of me. That person is, now in today's, we would call that a dead name. And that is by absolute the dead name for me. And so my consciousness just doesn't hear it, doesn't respond to it. Gradually over time, I have let go of that old form and taken on the new form that you see before you, that is Robert. I have let go of that old consciousness and brought on the new consciousness that is me. And here's the thing, folks, this is absolutely an inside job, and only you have the ability to make these changes. Only you have the ability to create the life you truly desire. At the bottom of page 272, in the bottom paragraph, there is no medium between us and the universal mind except our own thought. In such degree as we place a medium, we have to absorb that medium before we can make a direct approach. So let me give you a demonstration and explanation of that. The simple is, you are responsible for your life. But let's take a little bit of a different look. I have in my hand here a crystal. It's a beautiful amethyst crystal. It's been cut just nice. It's polished just nice. Feels really warm when I hold it in my hands. I can use this in my meditations. I use this to feel connect. However, this is the medium. And we teach this in Science of Mind all the time, that there is no power in the crystals. However, if I have a human experience and I sit here with this crystal in my hand and I meditate, I feel the crystal warm up. I feel the vibration in my hand. I feel a little better when I maybe have my crystals with me. What Holmes is telling us is that this is not truly the medium to feel the divine, to recognize the absolute. You can use it if it helps, but if I forget my crystal and I put it down and I walk away, am I any less connected? No. Do I have any less access to truth? No. There is no medium between us and the universal mind except our own thought. Except our own thought. And what I have experienced over the last 20 years is our human thought of lack and limitation, our human ego-based thoughts of getting getting what I need, of manipulating others, of using these principles to get what I need. There's the medium. I can be my own worst enemy, or I can be my own best liberator. We can put down the mediums. Again, if it makes you feel good, hey, and it's not harming anybody, then use it. But if you're out there teaching people that the only way to get to the divine is through this crystal or through this magic potion or through this energy drink or through this exercise regimen or through this philosophy even, that can't possibly be the truth. Holmes reminds us here, even in the Bible, it says there is no mediator between God and the one except Christ. Now, remember, we look at Christ and the Christ consciousness as, and he says it here, meaning the truth of ourselves, the human truth of ourselves. So if we have to make a choice and feel we do not know which or what to choose, we must be still in our own consciousness and know that the spirit within us knows which of these ways is right and most constructive and which will guide us. So when we don't know what to do or what to say, I don't have to move through the medium to get that answer. I have to look for that answer within myself. I can't even pray to God out there to please give me that truth, because that's not how it works. When intelligence, now Holmes uses the capital I intelligence here. This is referring, so this is a reference to divine, perfect, the absolute, God. When the intelligence makes a demand upon itself, so God is calling it, saying to itself, when intelligence makes a demand upon itself, it answers its own demand out of its own nature and cannot help doing so. if you are the expression of absolute divine intelligence in alignment with the co-creative nature of the universe, and you make a demand out of your own nature, as long as that demand is in alignment, you cannot help, the universe cannot help, cannot stop the flow of creation. In philosophy, this is called emergent evolution. Wherever the universe makes a demand upon itself, out of that very demand is created its fulfillment. But that can only be when the demand is in the nature of the universe. It is not in the nature of the universe to drop a gold brick in my hand out of anywhere. It is in the nature of the universe that if I do the work, if I go to a gold mine or to a place where there is gold and I mine that and I work the land and I use my hands and that I may find that gold. And if I stay with it long enough and believe it's possible long enough, then I don't get a gold brick dropped into my hand, but my hand finds the gold brick that is necessary to fulfill the desire and the belief I hold. So what if I just believe that there's always enough money in my life? Will it happen like that? No. Because there are still contradicting beliefs within myself. So over time, through our practice, using these principles, I come to a greater understanding that I am moving the particles, if you will, moving myself into alignment with this deep understanding. Only when the demand is in the nature of the universe. How powerful is that? Now, over on 274, Holmes starts talking about treatment. And for those that are maybe new with us, treatment is the New Thought version of prayer. Don't think of it as begging and beseeching. It's not a testament. It's not a petition. It's not anything to some white guy in the sky sitting on a throne and combing his long beard. Treatment is not for the purpose of making things happen. This is Holmes now on page 274. Treatment is not for the purpose of making things happen. It is to provide within ourselves an avenue through which they may happen. Treatment is reminding ourselves of a truth so that that truth may be demonstrated. But it is not about, I want this and I'm going to create this. It is about reminding myself that I am an avenue through which that may appear. A little farther down, treatment is not something one does to another, not something one does to an environment nor a situation. It is always the thing one does to themselves. Whatever method enables one to do this is a good method, a good way. Treatment is an action in thought alone. It opens up the avenues of thought, expands the consciousness, and lets reality, capital R reality, through. It clarifies the mentality, removes the obstruction of thought, and lets in the light. We already live in a perfect universe, but it needs to be mentally seen and spiritually experienced before it can be a part of our everyday life. There it is, folks, the mental and spiritual coin we talked of earlier. Treatment clarifies the mentality, removes the obstructions of thought, and lets in the light. We already live in a perfect universe, but that perfect universe needs to be mentally seen. We need to put our mental investment into seeing these truths and spiritually experienced. We need to be in that place of spiritually investing in our spiritual lives through prayer, through meditation, through visioning, through all of our spiritual practices. And then it can become a part of our everyday life. Then it becomes our life. Science of mind, a faith, a philosophy, and a way of life. And I will tell you that after 20 years of study, and it may not take you that long, and it may take you longer, but after 20 years of study, I fully feel that I am embracing that I am the way of life, that I am in every moment demonstrating, and some moments not as well as I would like. Some moments are a little out of alignment, but I know I can go back and clean that up. I use that as the reminder that says, here is a place where I can become even more aligned with truth. In such a degree as the answer and the result is contingent upon any existent circumstances, any existing known fact, no matter how apparent, the treatment is not in the absolute. To any degree as to the answer and the result. So in our prayer, if there is anything that relies upon a known, then we're still not in the absolute. We must move into that place of absolute knowing that everything is happening exactly as it must. It's a good thing we're only a couple pages from the end, folks, because we're only a couple moments from the end of our allotted time frame. Please do feel free to stick with us. We're going to go right up to the top of the hour today. On page 276, we must differentiate between the divine presence as a universal spirit, a thing to be communed with, and the universal law, which is simply a blind force. The law is a blind force. Unless we misunderstand it, we should be very careful to follow a constructive course. The law is absolute, and we should trust its personal action implicitly. It can do anything for us that we can conceive of it doing. It is the law of freedom to all who believe and obey it. We must realize that the universal spirit is the supreme knower in the universe. Drop down a little bit. We should daily train our thought to recognize the spirit in everything we do, say, or think. I say must. Holmes says should. I say we must. Train our thoughts to recognize the spirit, the divine, the absolute, the truth in everything we do, say, or think. Because anything else is malpractice. The thought that that person over there isn't good enough, or is wrong, or is bad because of their skin color, or their sexual orientation, or their gender identity, or any any of that crap. We should daily train our thought to recognize the spirit in everything we do, everything we say, and everything we think. And if something slips, and just like me, you have a challenge in a day, and something happens, and you respond negatively to that action, to that event, to that input, well, then just stop and change it. Just stop and say, whoa, hold on. No. That's not my name. That's not the truth of who I am. That's not the truth I want to experience. Now, there's a lot of people out there that will say, that's the moment where you go, oh, erase, cancel. No, that's not good enough. If you say it, if you think it, you've created a vibration in the universe. And what we've learned today is that universal law must return that vibration fulfilled. It cannot return it void. So we have to be willing, when we find ourselves taking a misstep, malpracticing, to immediately reaffirm what it is we do want. To reaffirm what it is we are saying in alignment with the absolute truth. On 277, about halfway down the page. Practice is a definite statement in mind, a positive affirmation. It is an active, conscious, aggressive mental movement, and in such degree as it embodies an idea, and there is no longer anything in our mind which denies the idea, there's an important part, it will take form, because it now becomes a part of the law and order of the universe in which we live. Every problem is primarily mental, and the answer to our problems will be found in spiritual realizations. Our practice is a definite statement, and I love that, an aggressive mental movement. But it has to embody the idea, and there can be no obstruction to it. And that's why we pray, and that's why we treat. So at the bottom of 277, success and happiness are ours when we deal with absoluteness. When we need to know, what we need to know is the truth. We need not compel things to happen. Only remember we are surrounded by a universal subjectivity, a subjective creative consciousness, which is receptive, neutral, impersonal, always receiving the impress of our thought, and which has no alternative other than to operate directly upon it, thus creating the things which we think. It's right there. We're surrounded by this universal subjectivity, a subjective creative consciousness which is receptive, neutral, impersonal, always receiving the impress of our thought, and which has no alternative other than to operate directly upon it, thus creating the things which we think. You got it? You think you got it? Well, now we get to go out and demonstrate it. So in the final paragraph, Holmes says, a good demonstration is made when truth, capital T truth, gathering its own power, lifts one out of their environment, and until that time comes, we should stay where we are in order that we may know when a demonstration has been made. Those that have heard me say that everything necessary for the complete and total fulfillment of your life's mission comes into your life exactly as necessary. And if it's not in your life right now, if there's something you're desiring or something you believe you need, and it's not in your life right now, well, then it's one of two things. It's either not necessary, most likely, or it's an opportunity for you to spend more time in your spiritual practice, eliminating the limit, revealing and removing the limiting beliefs, revealing and removing that which no longer serves. So we come into a greater alignment. Principle is absolute. In so far as any individual can actually induce within consciousness upon principle a definite concrete acceptance of their desire, it will manifest, even though every thought on earth had to change to compel it. If it were a bit of information that was needed for the demonstration that only one person on earth knew, that person was in the center of Africa, the information would be produced. That which is necessary for you to live the life you truly desire, that which is necessary for you to evolve into this next great expression of livingness that we are all involved with, that which is necessary to reveal the vision of this mighty ministry comes into our lives, into experience as necessary, and as we are able to accept and embody that truth. The science of mind is not a religion. It is a faith, and it is a philosophy, and it must be a way of life. Because if you're not using it, it's not working for you. It works when you work it, folks. It works when you work it. The beauty is, from my perspective, the work is our spiritual practice. It's not tracking down everyone we've ever known and asking them to call us by a new name. It's not erasing the old limiting beliefs that we may have had. It's not making wrong all the stuff we may have done. It's not in the process of othering people. It is in the process of coming to know that we are all one. It's a way of life. I want to thank you for being with us here this morning. This is the New Thought Media Network. This is a Science of Mind and Spirit conversation series. I want to thank you for being with us. And I want to invite you to share this with your friends, with your family, with those around you. Let them know what we're doing here. Let them know what we're creating here, because we're building an environment. We're building an environment where we can study these principles, where we can remind ourselves of these principles. We're building a global community to share this philosophy, this faith, this way of life in the world. So I want to thank you for being a part of that. If this happens to be your first time here, or if you've been coming for a while now, we want to invite you to be part of our Committed Giving program. Now, this is our way of being able to make sure this network continues and that we can continue to offer new incentive, new opportunities, new initiatives on how we take this out into the world. I want to take just another moment to say thank you to our organizational sponsors and our individual donors. And I invite you to please stay with us as we do this and add your energetic vibration of gratitude for what it is we're creating here and for the people that are making it happen. Let's say thanks to our donors and sponsors. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors and donors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, and all of our individual donors and sponsors. Thank you for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. Please come be you. Yes, thank you, dear ones, for being a part of what we're doing here as New Thought Media Network. If you'd like to join in and add a donation to our to the process, please head on over to the website ntmedia.org. There's a donate button up near the top. Click on that, make it a monthly donation. We'll get your name on our next version of that thank you video. Before I go, I want to remind you that we'll be back again next week with more as Reverend Dr. I said it again, Tracy, as Dr. Tracy Brown adds to us, and she's going to explore Chapter 17, Mental Equivalence. This is another deep, and rich chapter. I am personally just looking forward to seeing what Tracy's got to say about this next week. So please come back and join us and bring a friend or 12, either way. Where one or more are gathered, there is the divine, and that is what we are, and that is what we're doing. I'm Rev Robert, and I'm out of here for now. Until next time, I want to wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.